The night everything nearly fell apart began with a single sentence that landed heavier than thunder. She believed I already belonged to someone else, and in that instant, the future I'd been quietly building with hope and patience seemed to crack right down the middle. Misunderstandings don't arrive loudly, they slip in like shadows, and before you realize it, they're standing between two hearts that were finally learning how to beat in rhythm. I had waited years to feel brave enough to open myself again, and now, because of one assumption, I was watching the door close without even knowing how it opened. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet power of truth finding its way through confusion, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that love is fragile, but it's also incredibly resilient. My name is Nathaniel Brooks, and this happened in a small town outside Asheville, North Carolina, where the mornings smell like pine and the evenings feel like promises. I met Rebecca Lawson on a late spring afternoon when the air was warm enough to forgive past winters. She was the kind of woman who didn't need to fill silence because her presence already did. We didn't rush anything. Life had taught both of us that rushing love was like running barefoot through broken glass. I had lost my fiancé years ago in a car accident, a truth I carried quietly, never as a badge, always as a scar. Rebecca had her own history, shaped by betrayal and the slow rebuilding of trust. We found each other not because we were whole, but because we were honest about our broken edges. The misunderstanding began innocently, as most painful things do. My house still looked like a life frozen in time. A spare room held boxes I hadn't had the strength to empty. There were framed photographs turned face down, not out of bitterness, but out of respect for grief. When Rebecca first visited, I noticed her eyes linger on those unopened boxes and the extra toothbrush in the bathroom drawer that I used for guests but never thought to explain. I saw her smile, but I also felt something tighten in her chest, a subtle shift I didn't understand until it was too late. Over the next few days, her warmth changed into something cautious. Texts became shorter, laughter quieter. I assumed it was fear, the kind that shows up when feelings start to matter. I didn't realize she was carrying a belief that I had a wife, a living woman somewhere waiting for me to return, that she was merely stepping into someone else's space. The weight of that assumption pressed on her until it bent everything we were building. And when she finally let it surface, it wasn't anger that came out, but hurt so deep it sounded like resignation. The hardest part wasn't the accusation itself, but the look in her eyes, the one that said she had already prepared herself to walk away. Misunderstandings have a way of rewriting memories. Suddenly, every kind gesture looked suspicious. Every moment of closeness felt borrowed. I struggled to understand how we could be standing on opposite sides of a story neither of us meant to write. I wanted to defend myself, to explain every detail, but I also knew that truth delivered carelessly can still wound. So instead, I listened. I let her believe I heard her pain, because I did. That night after she left, the house felt larger than it ever had. The walls echoed with all the words I hadn't said sooner. I realized then that silence, even when born from good intentions, can grow into something dangerous. I spent the night sorting through those boxes, not to erase my past, but to finally place it where it belonged. Grief had shaped me, but it no longer defined my future. By morning, the sun rose over a house that felt lighter, and I knew I couldn't let misunderstanding be the reason love slipped through my fingers. I asked Rebecca to meet me at a quiet overlook in the Blue Ridge Mountains, a place where the world stretches wide enough to hold difficult truths. There, surrounded by open sky and endless trees, I shared my story fully, not defensively but honestly. I spoke of loss, of learning to breathe again, of how loving her wasn't a replacement but a new beginning. I didn't ask her to forgive immediately or to trust without questions. I only asked her to see me as I was, not as fear had painted me. Trust doesn't return all at once. It arrives in pieces, like light through cracked shutters. Rebecca didn't step forward right away. She needed time, space to rearrange the narrative she had been telling herself. Days passed where uncertainty hung between us, fragile and trembling. But something had shifted. Where there had been distance, there was now curiosity. Where there had been doubt, there was reflection. Slowly, she began to see that the truth didn't contradict my past, it honored it. What healed us wasn't just explanation, but patience. I learned that loving someone sometimes means standing still while they catch up emotionally. Rebecca learned that assumptions are often born from fear, not facts. We talked about boundaries, about communication, about the importance of asking before believing. Each conversation felt like laying a brick in something sturdier than what we'd had before. The misunderstanding, painful as it was, forced us to build something more intentional, more real. Months later, standing on the porch of that same house, now filled with light and laughter, I realized how close we'd come to losing everything before it truly began. Rebecca had moved forward not because the story was perfect, but because it was honest. Love didn't arrive as fireworks, it settled like a steady flame, warm and reliable. We learned that clarity is an act of kindness, and that second chances aren't about erasing mistakes, but about choosing growth. If this story is touching your heart, if it's reminding you of someone you almost lost or a truth you've been afraid to share, please take a moment to like this video, comment your feelings, and share it with someone who believes in redemption. Your engagement helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. Before we reach the ending, I have a special request for you. Please comment below with the words, "I choose understanding," and let this space become a reminder that love deserves patience and clarity. In the end, the misunderstanding that nearly tore us apart became the very thing that taught us how to stay. It showed us that love isn't proven by perfection, but by the courage to face confusion with compassion. In a world quick to assume and slow to listen, choosing understanding is a radical act. And sometimes, the greatest love stories aren't the ones without obstacles, but the ones where two people refuse to let misunderstanding have the final word.